Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video we're going to be doing a breakdown of this Overseer fight, exactly what makes it difficult, how to avoid it, and then we will be going over the best counters. Now I will not be uploading the gameplay and the solos in this video because I did a separate video for Tigra, how Odin solo on the live stream, and if I choose to try for any other champion solo, I shall do so later separately. But let's take a look at this fight. Now, first things first, there is a passive heal block completely eliminating all of healing by any means, and that combined with Overseer's signature ability and your special attack ability is failing and you're taking bursts of damage, obviously means that there is basically an unavoidable passive damage source in the fight, which means eventually, even if you technically play correctly, you will get KO'd via chip damage, via passive burst of damage, which is already kind of like the first difficult thing. Even punishment is just a mean, nasty node right here, because Overseer is immune to nullify, and every time you parry, you get a buff nullified on you as well, so it makes it trickier to use buff-heavy champions, which is what you want to do due to rich get richer. Obviously, they're also giving him the ability to parry. And then we have Encroaching Stun, one of the most annoying nodes in the entire game, especially considering that Overseer's special attacks actually do take quite a bit of time, and often you can end up getting just screwed by the fact that your timer expires exactly the moment Overseer throws his special attack and you're unable to throw yours. And on top of it, Power Alternator and Feats of Power, giving extra buffs to Overseer in combination with Rich Get Richer, giving him extra power gain, increasing the odds of him consistently throwing special attacks, makes this a fight where you consistently need to follow like 4 different timers. You need to be aware of Power Alternator timer, you need to be aware of Encroaching Stun, you need to be aware of whether his auto block is active and for how long, and obviously the total buff counts on you and Overseer in order to know whether Rich Get Richer is working. So all of that together is exactly what makes this fight hard. If you take away a couple of those things, the fight would be significantly easier. The difficulty comes from forcing you to follow too many things at once, and virtually, well, hardly anybody will be able to do it consistently, constantly, all the time. When we fight, there is a limit of how much attention we can pay to each individual thing. That's why typically the best options for this fight will automatically be whichever champions can eliminate your need to follow some of those requirements. And with that, we're going to start the breakdown here. So for Thronebreakers, you guys have 2 objectives: Hero and Metal, and then a small champion. And if I was to do it, I would definitely make sure that I just pick a champion that does both objectives at the same time, and then even if I need to use a couple of revives, I do that. So here I have listed first 5 champions that hit your hero, metal, and small objectives, in which case, for instance, if you bring in Angela, if you use a couple of revives, done. You don't need to fight anything else, and that's why I think it's just worth using a couple of revives for one fight, rather than trying to have like 2 perfect fights. And with Angela, obviously you do need her at high sig. You can easily use a 5-star. And the reason why Angela works very well here is, number 1, that she's immune to nullify, so you will be able to actively parry. Number 2, she almost always has plenty of buffs active, which also means that you will consistently be benefiting from Rich Get Richer, and you will virtually never have to pay attention to Overseer's power bar or how many buffs he has. And that does make this fight more manageable. And obviously she does have fairly decent damage output. Now, I still don't think I have seen a solo with Angela. I assume a rank 4 Angela probably can get it done, because ultimately, due to those passive bursts of damage you take from Overseer's sig, you're still likely going to get KO'd. Misty Knight apparently is a very good option with power boosts, and now I did try her myself yesterday. I didn't get close to a solo, but I have heard of several people who have soloed this with Misty Knight, because she's a skilled champion that can ignore the auto block when she's unblockable, and then on top of that, if she's awakened, she will also eventually be purifying all the debuffs, and furthermore, she does have 3 buffs, which typically will be enough for you to have more buffs than your opponent and benefit from rich get richer. Now, Gamora is, again, for a similar reason, a very decent option because she does have access to a lot of buffs, and then on top of it, she can bypass auto block at X amount of buffs active. Now, her scene as solo is Stark in Hand Spider-Man, works plenty well, and I do assume that Stealth Suit Spider-Man can get this down in a few revives as well. Now, if you're going for hero plus metal objective specifically, or only for that, like in my case, I used Odin to get a solo for hero plus metal, and then I used Tiger to get a mystic and small champion solo. Thus, within 2 fights, I got all 3 objectives, because Paragons also have a mystic objective. Objectively speaking, the easiest way to solo this fight and the quickest one is to use boosted up CGR with cosmic power boosts, and you can get it done in under a minute. So CGR is objectively the quickest, the easiest way how to get at least one of these objectives. Odin, in my personal opinion, was fairly easy fight. It took me about 4 or 5 attempts until I got used to the fight, and then I soloed it live on stream. Also have seen and heard people do it with Falcon and like 2-shot with Hulkbuster, for instance. Then moving on to Mystic and small objectives, we have virtually only Tigra. Other than that, there are a couple of more champions that would fit the bill of Mystic and small, like Guillotine, which actually fits all the objectives, I believe. And then we have Toja and Foster, Sorcerer Supreme. I don't think any of those champions are particularly great for this. I do think Tigra is an amazing option. It does take some practice. It took me about an hour worth of attempts and changed mastery setup to get it done, but it is 2 objectives in one go that is a potential solo. And then as Mystic champions, who I do think are the better options, I do think that Rintra, in theory, should be very good because Rintra's neutralized, should be able to completely counter Overseer getting buffs, and then Rintra also can go stun immune, and then obviously he also has a massive HP, so you should be able to block a ton. Now, I messed around yesterday with Mordo, and Mordo obviously has his own party trick in that fight. It's when you do get stunned via parry or encroaching stun, if he does not have a bar of power, you will astral evade out of it, so that can be quite helpful. I think Mojo has a potential to be quite useful there, because Mojo's prompts cannot be affected by ability accuracy, so he will always trigger those prompts and abilities related to them. And Mojo doesn't nullify, so you can bypass the immunity, thus, you know, benefiting from him throwing special ones, triggering Mystic Dispersion, and having that regeneration expire quicker, so on and so forth. Then, further on, I think Mo, for fairly similar reasons, could be a decent option, and Sasquatch for the massive health pool and potential of big burst damage. So I do think those are technically the better options. Now, I could have listed, again, some small heroes that would fit the hero objective only, but there's, I don't think, a specific need to only do that one objective by itself, because a lot of these heroes do happen to be also metal, and like Misty Knight, she already was mentioned there, and then we have, well, Stark in Hand Spider-Man, Stealth Suit Spider-Man, Tigra. So a lot of champions that were, most of the champions were listed here, were already mentioned before. If you have Max Limber, you can get that fight done with Rogue. It would be really, really long fight, but you can basically ignore the auto block stun and also the encroaching stun. So Rogue can get it done if you do happen to have her ranked up. It will just be a long, long fight. I did have some decent, good results with Black Cat personally as well. And I do think Kitty can put in a decent amount of work. Hitmonkey can put in a decent amount of work. If you have ranked up Gwenpool, I do think she has some very good abilities there. Emma Frost, by spamming level 1s, can turn it into a very long fight, but also with very reliable results. And obviously there are other options. But again, as I said before, this is kind of like the most common champions used that cover the most of the objectives, the quickest, easiest, and most painless. Again, just a basic reminder, you do not have to solo these fights. And if you are a Thronebreaker player, then, you know, ideally use one of the first 5 champions in between Angela, Misty Knight, Gamora, Stark in Hand Spidey, or Stealth Suit Spidey, and just throw a couple of revives at it. That would be my personal advice, not to kind of get over frustrated, overly carried away. And there are issues with Overseer currently. he is bugged. He's auto-blocking special attacks, which he should not be doing, but I'm going to cover that in a separate video either later today or tomorrow. Meanwhile, I hope you guys find this useful, and if you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the other buttons, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about